Welcome to the Main Street Business Insight Podcast,
featuring the stories of America's downtown and neighborhood entrepreneurs.
There's so much about being a Main Street business that is intertwined with what it means to be part of a community.
The impact that it has on creating jobs, occupying vacant storefronts, improving the quality of life, this is a big deal.
What advice would you give to other Main Street businesses?
Investing in yourself is the most important thing that you can do.
What was that experience like for you to reach out and, learn from others?
Any entrepreneur getting into business, I highly recommend find the people that you trust that'll tell you the thing you may or may not want to hear when you need to hear it, and who will stand by you in helping to solve your challenges.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Main Street Business Insight Podcast. Now, this week's story finds me talking to two Gen Z entrepreneurs, Patrick Jakowski and Matt Horn, owners of Firehouse Coffee 1881 in Hampton, Virginia. Now, the two of them were recently featured as panelists at the Virginia Retail Alliance's Retail Matters Summit. So shout out to Jenny and her staff for having them out, because this is how I discovered them. And after hearing their story, I thought, wow, this really represents kind of the new young generation of entrepreneurs, and would be a great storyline, I thought, for the podcast. And as we finish out this, what we call Peak 65 year in 2024, there, in some ways, this kind of invisible evolution, I think, happening around business transaction or business exits. And as such, I think it's only fitting that we explore the topic around Gen Z business ownership. Now, about 8% of small businesses are owned by Gen Z, and that's according to a 2023 Samsung and Morning Consult survey. And of U.S. students aged 16 to 25, that survey revealed that 50% of respondents wished to start a business. So it's a highly entrepreneurial generation, still getting started, obviously, and that's why we're at 8%. But based on sort of anecdotal and visual evidence around our main streets, it's certainly something that we're seeing more and more of. And so it's really just great to have Patrick and Matt here from Firehouse Coffee. So I'm going to bring them into the show right now and welcome them. Hey, Patrick. Hey, Matt. How you guys doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you both, and I'm really looking forward to our chat. I guess we could call it this evening. And while we're recording, I didn't really have a chance to do a lot of dialogue at the Retail Matters Summit with the two of you, but I was just wowed by your story and all the cool things. I did have a chance to stop into the coffee house. By the way, awesome coffee. Everyone head to Hampton, go to Firehouse Coffee 1881. It's a great location, super cool. You'll love the interior. It's got a great vibe. And so that's my commercial before we get started, gang. All right. So we like to always get started with the story, the journey. It's a really important aspect of the reason why we launched the podcast, to hear really from those that are doing it day in and day out. And so, Patrick and Matt, I kind of want to turn it over to the two of you, and maybe you can just chat a little bit about, how this came together, how the two of you came together, and how the vision behind Firehouse Coffee 1881 began.
I'll let you start it off, Pat.
Our story, I've told this I don't know, I feel like a million times, but yeah, we'll try to we'll start. Matt and I, we grew up 2 doors down from each other. He says, we can't remember the first time we actually met, but it was playing outside or something around age 5. I think we grew up, we went to the same middle school together, high school. We started the same high school, then we kind of took different paths. Matt hit 4 different schools. Ended up moving out to California. We stayed in touch like this whole time.
Okay.
Back and forth. I mean, throughout high school, even in early years of college. But we were two different, totally different paths. And then we're best friends since we were 5. I mean, we ended up, I went out to visit him probably like 7 or 8 times out there while you were out in LA. I had some family out there, so just staying in touch. And were you out there 3.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And, we FaceTimed all the time, or whether it was a visit here or there. Ended up when he came back, moved in with my brother at the time. So we stayed with him for about like 4 years, I want to say.
Okay.
But just stayed in touch, and we were always kind of like, I don't know, we like to start our entrepreneurship journey. I want to say we both quit our jobs.
Okay. That will be a start.
Yeah. So we're living with my brother, kind of just like doing nothing, kind of just odd stuff to like make it by, but we're just sitting around every day trying to draw up ideas. And like we always thought, like you said, 50% of age 15 to 25, they want to start a business. So
Yeah.
we're like, all right, what are we gonna do? I used to ask this guy like so many ideas
Every day.
A new idea every day.
Mm-hmm.
Was this during the pandemic in which you guys there was a lot of discussion around the pandemic of the sort of the great resignation where people were like, I need to rethink my life. Was this about the same time period?
Yeah, a little bit after. I came home from California because of COVID, and then
Okay.
I started living with Pat, and I was just like an oyster shucker, and I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. But
I think you're our first oyster shucker we've had on the show, Matt.
Yeah, and then we both quit around the same time, and we're just like, what are we gonna do? He's throwing out ideas every day, and for some reason coffee shop just stuck with me because I had experience working there, and I thought that would be like the easiest transition for us to go after.
Yeah. So you hone in on the coffee shop idea. Where did you go from there? How did you land? Because I believe the coffee shop was an existing business before. Am I correct in that? Did I get my research right?
Yes.
Okay. So then somehow the two of you acquired. Talk to me about that. What was that process like? How did you find them? That sort of thing.
Well, we kind of like luck. We kind of spoke it right into existence. Like when we're bouncing these ideas, the only thing he said yes to is coffee shop, and literally booked out a ticket to go potentially, work for my cousin. She's in the pet industry out there, and I was just going to go look for jobs and do the opposite. Like he was leaving, I was going to try to go right before the airport. Yeah. Right before the airport, I just wanted a cup of coffee. So my buddy that took me to Firehouse a couple of years ago, and so I go in, and they used to be closed on Mondays.
Okay.
So I walk in the door, and the Dominion power worker was there that Monday to like change over the power. So I just assumed they were open. So I walk in behind this guy, and she's like, we're closed. And I'm like, on a Monday? And she's like, come back tomorrow. I said, I can't, I got a one-way. I'm going to Cali, and I don't know if I'll be back. And she was like, well, sit down. Like, why are you going? I'll make you a cup of coffee and just talk to me about it. So I sat down, talked to her for a couple of hours before I would head to the airport. And she was like, actually, I'm thinking about selling. And I was like, if you're serious, I'll book the return flight as soon as I get there for 2 weeks later, and I'll come back, sit down, and we'll talk about this. It's just kind of.
Oh, that's wild.
That's what I did. Come back 2 weeks later, Matt, our business partners, we all met with her and her husband and agreed upon kind of the loosely terms.
Yeah.
And the contract was drawn up. Eventually sat down with the lawyers on my 25th birthday in November, late November. and boom, we just bought it. Just
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. And so with the two of you, you know, did you have some capital resources? Is that one of the things that you looked at when structuring the deal? Because I think you know, one of the common discussion points, I think, with Gen Z and millennial markets and buying is often the capital resources are tied up in sort of the boomer and the Gen X generations, and so trying to acquire a business and thinking about where do I find the financing. I think there's a lot of younger folks that would be interested in your story about, like, how did you make this happen? What did you do in order to make this happen with perhaps, you know, limited financial resources or what have you? How did that work?
We went to that generation and we asked them for help.
The older generation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Brilliant.
that's correct. So initially, when we met, we got the business evaluated by a professional.
Good. Okay.
So right there off, because she threw out a number and like we didn't think it was worth that much, and so we got it. You know, the business evaluated. They came back. They were like, "You're right. It's not." So yeah, we asked that generation. I mean, I just came off. This is how it worked with our minds, and I feel like I could speak to this because, like, I mean, it's not like a secret. But so we got my parents to put their house back in it, but the loan, I strategically, like, when we based it off the percentage of who gets it through the company, you know, it goes like 40, 10 or 20, you know, now technically. So like if you're basing it off like that amount of money that you're buying the business from, in our minds, like 40% of what it was like we could make that money back if we did fail, you know, within a year and pay it back and be out. It's not really a risk in our minds because like we've been working and we were like, we know how much money we've been making the past, you know, 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. And to us, it's like, it wasn't that big of a risk. And my parents rolled the dice on it in believing us that it was. So
those are the best kind of investors. we
right.
call those you know, the family and friends, which is a common practice for how a lot of businesses get started. You're trying to attract different equity sources, you know, to the deal, and that's obviously what the two of you ended up doing. So, but could you talk a little bit about the valuation? Like, how did you know where to go to? Did someone like say, hey, contact this? Was it an accounting firm, or like, how did you go through that process to value the business?
So one of the bank that we use is Old Point National Bank. Obviously, I talked about it at the Retail Matters event, and how we got them to donate. So their CEO, Rob Shuford, he was like, you know, businessman of, you know, Peninsula, like back-to-back years. Lucky enough to, like, you know, be very, you know, I'm close friends with the very close friends of his, and, you know, we've talked and met a couple different times. And he actually told me, he said, I have a person that evaluates businesses for our banks. If you want us to evaluate it, we will. So that's what we did. We went straight to him, and that's where we still bank with today. So as we opened up that account, got the loan through Old Point, you know, they're more than happy enough because they want to see where their money's going.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly. But that was really smart, and, you know, part of the process for any new entrepreneurs, like, who's my reach out in terms of resources and guidance and that kind of thing. And so that can be a bank, that can be an SBDC, that can be a whole host, but it's a good part that you had a network that you could turn to. When you were choosing to invest in a coffee business, was there something about the culture of coffee shops that drew you in? Did you have a vision, you know, when you saw the existing Firehouse? Was that the vision, or you just saw that as a foundation at which to craft your own vision for what the coffee shop could be?
I think we always wanted to. We just wanted to maintain what they had going on and try to, make it work. We could
Yeah.
see from just being on the outside which parts of the business wouldn't hold up, and like we could come in and change these things, and this would probably be we could make this work pretty much.
Was there some specific things that you saw that were like, oh man, we can make this so much better?
Yeah, the wait times were forever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and me, my background in fast food, I was ready to make that change so fast. But
Like, I'm sort of curious, just if you could speak to that, Matt. Like, okay, so yeah, you can recognize that, but what processes do you put in place? Is that just staffing? Is that training? What is that?
well, it's just like the order of operations, number one, and then what products we have, like taking things off the menu, just simplifying it, making it easy and
Streamlining.
trainable so we can hire people and teach them how to do it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
back to your thing about the culture of the coffee shop. I actually went to the coffee shop one time, and even though it was long, I didn't mind because the atmosphere was awesome. I saw like, oh, these are like people in my area, and me coming back from California, I didn't know Hampton to have that sort of community. Even though when I was out there, I would go to a coffee shop pretty much every day. I'm a skateboarder, so when we were going to get clips for the videos, we stop at a coffee shop early in the morning, get a bagel, maybe a cold brew or iced latte, and then we hit the road. So I was excited to bring that kind of culture to Hampton.
And I think we took a big risk too, is I'm going to say the location.
Yeah.
Like, we love Fort Monroe. We grew up going there, like when it was still active. And like, I could honestly say, I don't think that we would have jumped on the opportunity if it was not on Fort Monroe.
Really? Because I mean, I do find it interesting, the location, because it's not, for the listeners out there, their location is not in a traditional commercial area by any means. It's in Fort Monroe, which is this, well, you both know it better than I, but really this historic, sort of military, compound kind of thing and monument. And there's a lot of residential around there, but it's not what you would think of in terms of a traditional commercial area by any means.
No, it's it was decommissioned in 2011. I tell everybody it's kind of like an island. But when it was given back to the Commonwealth of Virginia, so it's like all surrounded by water. It's beautiful. It's 536 acres, I want to say. You can't own anything out there because it's like federal. It's a national monument. It's also involved in the National Park Services as well. Like, there's acres around the grounds that are scattered that are technically national parkland. There is residents there. I think there's over 200 now, like active people renting apartments and houses that are still, obviously working and running out there, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the infrastructure there and everything else, I mean, it's terrific. When you were, young entrepreneurs and thinking about, there's lots of competition in the coffee market for sure. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you think of your brand and differentiating it from, other competitors out there.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, we don't really think about the others that much. We kind of just stay in our lane and try to do what we like to do and what we think is fun, and support the causes that we personally are invested in, whether it be like youth baseball, youth sports, or just like financial literacy in the community, things like that, youth leadership, those things.
Go ahead, Pat.
I would say that we do connect with all like different owners, like in the industry and stuff, like whether it's just restaurant or coffee. But yeah, we don't think too much because like we are kind of like, Matt spoke about it at the event, like we're like a destination, and there's only like 3 businesses that are like in the food, like technically one's a brewery, one's a seafood restaurant, and then there's us out there. So there's like, you're kind of coming to Fort Monroe to like, spend the day or view the history.
Right.
Like, it's not like you're just going down Mercury Boulevard or, hit a Starbucks.
Yeah, and the way it's kind of laid out, once you're there, you're not going to have a lot of intentionality to leave and go get coffee or something or a bite to eat, which you guys have a really, really nice menu as well. So from that standpoint, you're right. You sort of have a captured market in many ways there. You all talked about some of these community connections and some of the things that are really important to you. Is there something in your history or just how you think about what business should be that makes those connections with the community so important?
That's a good question.
I think giving back, the more you give, the more you get, or like, that's kind of like, one of the things that we added to our, anytime we have a new employee, like one of their things, is we want you to give away you can give away like 1 out of 3 free items a day, like a brewed coffee, like a free cookie or a coffee cake, to like just give back or say like put a smile on somebody's face or like thank you. And it's like getting them to like speak to somebody outside their comfort zone or like do something nice. So like that's kind of like if you're just looking for like success, money, success, like there's not a lot of people that are going to be helping you all the time, and you need help all the time.
Right.
You really do. Like it's hard. It's really extremely hard. I feel like, yeah, that's just the best way possible, I guess.
Yeah, I think we want everyone to feel like they are a part of Firehouse Coffee. Like it's their coffee shop. We always say it's not for us, it's for the community. So just providing the space and whatever people need, from us, just trying to give that to them so they have a place to go.
Yeah. I know that you mentioned that there's not, you don't look at other sort of, coffee houses or that kind of thing in terms of from a competitive. Are there other people, or whether in business or in others, that you all look at, from a modeling perspective, as you're thinking about your own entrepreneurial journey?
Off the top, you got anything off the top?
You go ahead.
Off the top, I would say like one of the best pieces of advice I've ever got, like when I was growing up playing, is like everybody has at least one thing to offer you that you could like learn from. Like you don't have to take it all in, like, like every coach is different on how they coach ways, but like you could take one thing from a coach. So like I listened to like the Guy Raz podcast, How I Built This, and he does like the entrepreneur journeys and like the founder journeys, and you can just listen to like those people and you're like, yeah, I understand. You're
I've
like,
been there.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Just constantly being a student of like success and student of like, the game, just of like, it's always changing too. Like,
I think locally, I would say his name Tommy Riemann from Sitting on My Chest.
yeah, shout out.
He's like a big inspiration for us because, he's a local guy, and to see his brand explode kind of within the last couple of years has been very inspiring. And then like bigger than that, I've always been a big fan of Pixar, and however their creative team has, I don't know, I think they're awesome. So I try to take whatever I can from the big companies like that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about future goals for the business. Have you thought about maybe expanding into other areas, maybe coffee roasting or having your own brands, or any thoughts there? Where would you like to take the business?
We always like to take whatever opportunity is best in front of us.
Spot on. I mean, Yeah, that's what we say to everybody because, like, yeah, we just take the best opportunity and just like work with it. But we have ideas, like if you want to hear a couple of them. I mean,
Yeah, of course. We're always interested in where's the future going for the business.
so initially, like I would say, like the end of like the first year, Langley Air Force Base reached out to us and like to put a second location like on inside the base in the. I mean, I can talk about it now. I'm sure I can. I didn't sign anything, but it's like ISR building. It's like a super top secret building, apparently. But
Super cool.
yeah, well, we filled out the paperwork. We went through the process, and it's like it takes forever. And then we get to the end, and they're like, "Nah." And we went through that like twice, and it ended up the same way both times. And we're like, "Y'all approached us, like,
Yeah, right.
but." That's the whole thing. Like then when you fill it out, so that was the best opportunity in front of us that first year. It didn't work out. So we were just like, okay, we kicked around the idea of like a truck or like a pull behind trailer that we could like maybe do off the beach or like at farmers markets.
Mhm.
But the overall, like, we also talked to Jay Manziel. He's like big branding guy. He's like Allen Iverson's guy as well. He went to Harvard Business, went to undergrad at Kentucky, but like he talked about different ways we can like wheel outside of the coffee shop, like because like you can, whether it's like honey butter or like getting into like Wegmans or Food Lion. Like we toured Blanchard's up in Richmond, and they're in every like
supermarket.
Yeah.
So you would have your own roasted coffee brand with Firehouse on it, kind of thing.
Yes.
We could do that.
Yeah.
I think what we've really been kind of thinking out recently is trying to win some type of money, or like we would love to revamp the upstairs of the building and have it in usable working condition. So whether we're doing like having a really nice historic meeting space. I mean, my dream was like a historic Airbnb, like bed and breakfast. I don't know, like there's a lot of people you got to talk to, and there's a lot that would have to happen. But like, imagine staying above in the oldest firehouse for the U.S. Army, and then
It's
you get your food and everything comes with it, at the downstairs.
Yeah,
or
that's amazing.
Cater something out of the top, or like rent out the rooms to like big companies that come in and want to like come to the fort, have like a nice
event space or something like that. But basically like trying to leverage the full use of the facility in many ways. Yeah. So you're leveraging your return on all the square footage.
Yeah, we can't own it, so but we
exactly.
Yeah.
What as we talked about the coffee industry's quite competitive, but how do you stay creative and keep meeting the needs of your customers and the local market? Do you follow trends, or are you looking at sort of what comes next on the coffee front? Where do you get that information?
We did attend the Coffee Fest in Los Angeles a few years ago. It's like a big trade show, all coffee shops, equipment manufacturers, like literally anybody is there. We could see like all the trends and decide which ones we want to hop on. But mostly feedback from, our staff, our regulars, our whoever's coming. We just try to, listen, keep an ear out.
Yeah, nice. Okay. I always like to close out the show with and you gave a little bit of advice, but we're gonna pull a little bit more. But with especially with other Gen Z entrepreneurs, if you were looking at some other mid-20s folks coming into the store and say, how'd you guys get here? What would you advise me to do? What would you tell them?
Get ready to pay taxes.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yo, the taxes are crazy. wanted
You're
to say
sounding
that
like a much older generation already.
Man, when you start learning, like,
Yeah.
whew, whew, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a couple
Yeah.
ones.
All that comes in the pocket goes right back out, doesn't
Right
it?
out. Put it away because they're coming to get it.
Yeah. Here, you got anything off the top? Because I feel like there's like one or two more things I want to say, but I don't want to like if you.
Try not to sweat the little stuff. Like you can get real nitpicky, but at the end of the day, the show has to go on. So keep moving towards the big picture and don't let the little minor day-to-day things really wreck your attitude or effort levels, I guess I would say, because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort.
We got this piece of advice kind of early on, and it's all depending on what company you're going with, like, and if you're starting. But a lot of people want to sell merchandise like before they have like a product out there that people like know or hear about.
Yeah.
And that's the quickest way to lose money. The quickest
Before
way.
there's a demand, right?
Yeah. Don't buy a bunch of stuff to try. Like, I mean, thank God we didn't, but you really want to like Matt said, like the problems, there's stuff that you're going to worry about at the start that you won't even worry about like a month or two down the road, and then a year from two. But taxes, make sure you have a good CPA, accountant, somebody like that. You're keeping up to date with all of your records. You have to keep all your records because when you got to go to the bank or somebody's presenting you with opportunity, or you got to know how much you're asking for money from somebody, they want to see everything. Like,
truly wise beyond your years. Is one of the biggest downfalls. Is the paperwork, the volumes of paperwork and record keeping. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think it is one of the biggest downfalls of law, is both not fully studying and understanding the market in advance, which you alluded to, and jumping in too fast, and then the whole record side. Because if you want any kind of financing or partners or anything like that, you've got to have the numbers. So it's really, really good advice.
And like the numbers do the target market, like who's your best
spending
customer.
Money.
Yeah,
who you're going to cater to, pretty much.
Know the market, know your customer.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I want to thank you both for joining me on the show, and a special shout out to Matt, who is not feeling well, but made it through. Total trooper. So appreciative of both of you, and wish you both all the luck. You guys got a great business and wonderful coffee, great product, and lots of head smarts. You're going to do well. So thanks for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.